Okay, so yeah, as I was saying, today we are going to kill loops. Everything concerning loops, we are going to handle it. So after today, we'll not be talking of whether we know how to work with loops or not. So I'll start with the simplest type of loop, which is the while loop. So the while loop is basically like an if condition that has the capacity to run to loop itself. That's basically what a while loop is. It's just so if you notice in Python, the syntax of Python are similar. The same way I write my if a plus b or if a equals b, then come down here and do something. It's exactly the same way I would whatever I'm writing, blah blah blah. It's exactly the same way I'll do my while. So I can still say while a plus or a equals 3, come down here and do my blah 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 blah. So if it's like the syntax in Python is not, it doesn't change rapid. It's not like okay, you while loops you write them completely differently. So it follows there's a everything looks alike. They're similar. So now um so for this for to explain the way a while loop works, I will then we are going to create a counter by ourselves. We're going to create a counter that counts, stuff. So a counter that will count from maybe one to any number we specify. Okay. So let us first create a variable called count. Okay. And equate this to an integer user input. So int input and we tell the user to input a number inside here. So we just tell them to enter a number. Enter. Okay. Okay. So now so any number they enter here, we want to count from 0 to that number with our while loop. So now we have a so we are storing the number inside this variable called count. So now to start a while loop to actually handle this counting, now we will say while. Okay. So where are we counting to? That's the number one question I want to ask us. So now we said we want to count from 0 to the whatever number the person entered, right? So now, what do you guys think? Since we are not much, you guys can unmute your mic if there's no noise in your background, so we can be interactive. Um, so this is I'm giving you guys the problem now. No, we want to count from 0, okay, to whatever number the user entered, which will be stored in that variable called count. So I want to use a while loop now to store. If you have any ideas on how we should write it, please unmute your mic and so that I can write it. Or if not, let me just continue.
Okay, I think I have an idea.
Okay.
So, again, what we'll do here is y can't
Okay.
is equals to or less than
It's less than or
equals
equal.
to okay, exactly less than or equals to let me say 10, not use 10 as our maximum.
Okay.
Then we put our column, then print
Mm-hmm.
print can't. Exactly.
Alright.
I
So
don't know.
to run this code now, you see what to print out for us. Count. Okay, enter a number.
Yes, exactly.
Enter a number. Let me enter 3. Yeah. It's going to crash my laptop after running
Oh
for a long
shit.
time. So let me pause. So now the thing is there are a few things we are taking. So how I used to approach this kind of problem. So let me, if I was the one to approach it now, look at what I would do. So they said the question said I want a build. I want to write code for a counter that counts from 0 to whatever number the user specifies, right? So I know that the highest number I want to count to is the number the user
Okay.
specified. Yeah? So it means while count. Let me see if I can get it correctly. So I want to count from 0. Okay. So
So the y is
what it means is that I will need
the
to
highest
create
number.
a new, because count is going to be the highest number. So I think there's
Yeah.
a way I can say while count is no, I cannot compare counts to itself. That's the problem. So I need to create another variable here now. Let me just call it a or something and equate it to 0. Okay. So now I can now come here and now do something. um so I will use a as my, like, is a that I'll be incrementing until it reaches count. You get? So because I cannot compare count to itself, because to do so for the problem. So if you want to run through the problem said, um build a counter that will count from 0 to the number that the user specified. But how to do that, to count from 0 to that number, each time you count, you need to compare the number you are at to the number the user specified. If they are the same, if not, if they are not the same, increment again and compare, increment again and compare, increment again and compare. So what we are actually doing, we are writing an algorithm. Okay, this is an algorithm to count. So now let us so what the first thing now, we've created a variable a to store our counting, the actual value that we want to increment. All right, so we'll now say while a is less than the user input, or less than or equal to the user input, which is what? Count. Okay, so now as far as a is less than count, do something. So I want Python to print a out, print out a, and then after printing out a, do this, do a equals, or let me just make it snappy, a plus equals 1. So this means a is equal to a plus 1. So am I so yeah, I think with this the code will run any amount of times that the user. So now it says enter a number. If I enter 20 here now, it should count to 20 and stop. You see? So you can see. So now that is actually how a while loop works. So this is the way a while loop works. This condition is specified, and usually for a while loop you need to, the thing about the while loop is that if you don't find a way to update the state of this variable a, it will become infinite. Just like the one you gave me, you saw the way it was forever, it ran forever basically. So the variable, your main variable in your loop, or say your base variable, that the variable that controls your while loop, must be able to update itself, and that updating must occur inside that while loop too. So yeah, that's how I can write a simple while loop to run a particular amount of times. Okay, now let's show, I'll talk about the continue statement. So there are lots. So now there's also a way to break out of a while loop, like if you want the loop to stop at some point. So I can actually use like things like break, continue, which I'll show you now. So um okay, so let me use the continue. So to use the continue statement, I'll need to specify a condition for that to happen. So what does continue mean? Continue means, what continue actually does, so let me just show you. I'll say if a is equal to what's number, let me say I want to jump a number. So if double equal sign, if a is equal to 20 self, let me just jump 20. If a is equal to 20, I want to do this, come down here and just say continue. Alright, and alright, it should work. If it doesn't work, I'll have to take this one. So let's try it. Okay, so for what I want to do now, I don't want it to print out 20 again. So let me enter 20 and see what happens. Alright, so you can see what happened. It didn't print 20. You get? So to better explain it, let me choose a number that is not the last number. Let me choose 19. So let me choose 19. Okay, and you run this now and you'll see what will happen. It will jump 19 and write and print 20. So 20, yeah, 17, 18. You actually even didn't print 20 again. It's supposed to print 20 for me. Why did it print 20? Oh, a equal 19. Continue. That's start the loop on the game. Let's see it. Stop at 18. Let's see. I'm coming. Get this import. Then equals 1. Run it again. Enter a number 20. It's he didn't even print anything. Someone is trying to join you. Someone trying to join. Okay. I'm missing
Once you
some.
put the
Yeah, suggestions, please. What are you saying?
I was thinking that what if you put the print and the A increments under the if statement, like under it first,
No, the thing is, I want it
like
to
under the continue.
under the continue. If
Okay,
it's the thing is anything under a
exactly.
continue, the continue will not run anything under it. That's the kind of the way it works.
Okay,
So if so the way if the so like is a so what does continue do? Look at what continue does. If the condition is for if the condition is met, continue would take the loop back to the beginning. It will not run instead of this guy is here to run. It will go back here. If the condition is met again, it will go back here like that. So that's what was
okay,
happening. That's why once immediately A was equal to 19, it stopped. It didn't run any of this thing anymore. It just kept you know going back and checking. And so that's where a
okay,
continue statement works in Python. It will take the loop back to the where it started from, like to the beginning. It's more like a reset button.
reset. Okay, okay,
So if you let's run it again and we will see. So if you run it now, okay, it's still running. Let me just enter a number. So I said if A is equal to 19, right? So when I enter 20 now, it will stop at 18 because as that's where I put my continue where A is 19. So mainly it hits 19,
okay,
it will go up here and it will check if it's 19. If it's 19, it will hit this continue, go back and check. So nothing, my code is like standstill, nothing is happening, right? So yeah, if I put this print under the continue, it won't even work. It won't even work at all. That's the way it continues. So there's also another one called a break. So a break is different from a continue because a break will exit. So if you notice, did you notice that my code hasn't exited? Okay, wait, you didn't notice it. So let me.
yes, yes,
Normally if your code finish running, it will tell you process finished or something.
yes, exactly.
So the code is actually still running. It's still running this block here. It's still cycling inside here. Continue back. But let me replace
Okay,
this continue here with a break statement. So you see the difference now. And when I run it and I say A is what 20, what happens? Do you see? It said process finished with exit code 0. Do you see the difference now?
okay,
So when I put my continue
yeah,
there, my continue is like a reset button that says if the condition is met for that continue to run, go back and start the loop from the beginning. That's basically what continue does. With the break, but what a break will do is that a break will just exit the loop, like abruptly, like end the cycling, and that's the end of your while true loop or your any loop at all. So the reason it's good to have break is because what if break is good when you are using if your code is supposed to run forever. For example, if I was using maybe like a while true here instead of incrementing like a count, I can actually now break out of a loop that does not have an end anytime I want. You get? So yeah, that's the difference between the break and the continue statement. So um this is basically how a while loop works. So you can specify while true. We've seen while true very well. We already know what it means. It means run, just go, keep going. And yeah. Now the next loop we'll look at is a for loop, and then we'll do an example with a list and maybe a string, and we'll call it a day because my head is already starting to is acting up. So now So now we are going to look at a for loop, okay? But to better understand a for loop, please can someone your mic, can you mute it? The noise is getting to the class. Alright. So to better understand the for loop, um I'm going to create a list, okay? So a list is just like is a data type for storing variable for storing data. Yeah, data types are for storing data. So that's like I'm just so it's for you can use it to store elements, numbers, characters, a bunch of stuff. So let me create one. Let me call it names. Okay, so let me call it right. So names equals yeah. This is how you know a list in Python. Square brackets. So I'm going to add a bunch of names. Andrew. I don't know why Andrew Tate came to my mind. Tate. What else? Uh, what should I name? Ferrari. Ferrari. Maybe just make this one a string and hot dogs. Yeah, and Tate, Ferrari, and hot dogs. Nice combination. Eating hot dogs and a Ferrari. Nice. Okay, and hot dogs. Okay, so we have how many things here now? One, two, three, four, four things. Not bad. Okay. So we're going to cycle through everything inside this list. Okay. And you might because the last class I was trying to explain how a for loop was, but I wasn't able to like give a very big example. That's because I couldn't use list because we've not reached there, but we'll soon reach. So it's got no harm in using it now. Who's speaking? So now to do a for loop, you know how it starts with a for, and we need a variable like our the variable that we are going to be using to do the iteration. Just like remember, just like in the last example where we were counting, we needed a variable to store the count as we are going up. You get. So the same thing for a for loop. We need a variable to store the amount of times we've gone through the loop. Okay. So we are going to call it, you can call it anything. So for name, so let me just call that variable name. So for name in names, all right, all right. I want to do something for each name. So basically, what is this saying? For each name inside these names, or for each item inside these names list, perform an action. So let's start with a simple print, and let's say just print that name out. So print the name out, and if I run this, you will see it will print out agitate Ferrari hot dog, right? Um, so exactly the same way it works for you can even so there is also more things you can do since this is a list. This list has a lot of functionalities. It's very it's nice. You use it a lot in Python, like a lot. So there's plenty of things you can do with this list. In fact, when you start doing things like back-end web development, a lot of your objects will be returning a list with people's data. So fetch a list from the database, or fetch a dictionary from the database, or send something as a list of values. All those things you'll be doing it a lot. Um, so for naming names, blah blah blah, print name. Okay, we saw how it came out. It printed out all the name for us. So there's also a lot of things we can do. We can print out the. Let me see if I can print out the index of names. So let me see. Print. Can I print out the index? Index. Brackets, close brackets, brackets here. If Python will allow. I don't think it allows it. Index of. No, that's C++ stuff. Okay. Um, name does index. Index. I'll need to specify the start, stop, all those things. Okay, those not good there. These ones are methods. We should look at methods later when we look at the dictionary and the list and all. So so the same thing we did in the listening, we can actually do a lot of. We can do these are we can say continue, break, and all that stuff. So we can break at we can say we want to break when the name is Ferrari. So all we need to do is just say name equal Ferrari. 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 Then just perform break out. So break. You know what will happen. It will print the name up to how to move this thing. Python really looking at me like what are you writing there? So yeah, stop here and it should agitate. Nice. So yes, that's the break for you. So you ended the code. If we said continue, we know what will happen. So if I replace the break with a continue and run it, it would okay. It said it jumped. Where is it? It jumped Ferrari and it printed Andrew Tate hot dogs. It didn't print Ferrari. So what happened? What happened now? The difference between what we are seeing now and the so So if you remember the last time, the code didn't end when we put a continue. The reason was because we were using numbers to calculate, and the condition was met. So look at what happened there. For name in names, if the name is Ferrari, continue, right? So to check, is name Ferrari at the first point? No, it's not Ferrari. So print it out. To print name Andrew. To come the second time, his name Ferrari. No, name is Tate. To print it out, Tate. Come the third time, his name Ferrari. Yes, jump it, go back and start from name again. So it instead of printing this guy, he hits this continue, went back and started from where he stopped, like reset back, you know. So instead of since the name was Ferrari, continue means don't go to the next line. Actually, go back to the beginning and continue the code. That's what it means. So it will now jump Ferrari and then continue when name is hot dogs, and then it will print out name, and you have Andrew Tate hot dogs. Andrew hates hot dogs. Alright, so yeah, so that's pretty much it for your for loops. Now you can also have a loop inside a loop. Okay, so you can have a loop inside a loop, which is what is also you use those for loops when you are doing some complex things. So it's good that you learn it now, so that it took me some time to actually figure it out or to understand it. Let me create another list called bikes or boys. What should I call it now? Stuff. Okay. Yeah, stuff. So stuff equals a list again, and now let's say the list is what is inside that list? It's a list of stuff like Bugatti, who knows all these Chevrolet? Okay, call it a Chevy, Aston Martins. Let me call it an Aston Martins. Martin, right? Aston Martins, there's a BMW favorite car, BMW M12. Okay, so we have a bunch of cars and stuff, vanity. So now we want to put some things together. Like, so what I want to do something now for name in names, right? Which means for each name in the names list, do something. Okay, but now what I want to now do is I want to do like for each name in the names list, I want to print that name and something from the stuff. So like I want to print name and stuff together at the same time. So I want to pick like Andrew Bugatti, Andrew Chevy, H Chevy, Ferrari Aston Martin, something like that. So I want to just like do a weird loopy cyclist something now. So this is going to this is going to break. I don't know, not like it broke my head, but like when I to figure it out, it took me some time. So for naming names, we are going to now do another loop. Okay, we're going to do another loop now inside here for stuff. Let me make this stuffs so that it's more makes more sense. For stuff in stuffs. Now what do you want to now do overall? So let's start with say print. What do you want to now print? You want to print two things. You want to print the name, comma, the stuff. Okay. So let's see what this looks like when we run it. So okay, can you see what happened? Andrew Bugatti, Andrew Chevy, Andrew Aston Martins, Andrew BMW M12, 8 Bugatti. So it took what look at what happened. For the first name, when the name was Andrew, for naming names, then for stuff in stuffs. So it means when the name is Andrew, enter the stuff list and do for stuff in stuffs, name and stuff. So when the name is Andrew, the first thing you need to do is Andrew Bugatti, Andrew Chevy, Andrew Aston Martins, Andrew BMW. Then to go back again to the up list. When the name is hate, to come and do hate Bugatti, hate Chevy, hate Ferrari. I mean hate Aston Martins, hate BMW. go back to the list again. Ferrari, Aston Martins, hot dog, BMW, like that, like that, like that. So that's what you have here. So let me see what will happen. Let me see what will happen if I print it outside here. I can't even do that. Let me check here. I don't want to allow me to do it self because it's not working. Okay. Let me see if I can add another print statement. Can I pass and then print outside? No. Okay. So this is a very very simple basic example of using multiple for loops to create stuff, add, take things together. So you use this a lot when you build a more complex algorithm like how like I was looking at one algorithm course this today said before I could not continue. This is exactly what they were doing, explaining a particular type of algorithm. Um, I would have started explaining, but if I start explaining now, it's going to take time. But I just wanted to show you guys how to use multiple for loops to iterate through stuff. Especially when you have like two lists that you want to iterate together or put together, you can use two for loops to do it. Um, so yeah, the use case will still come out. All these things now you will still find out where you can use them properly and all and all and all and all. So yeah, the next and the last thing we are going to look at is how to um, cycle through a string. So in fact, a string and a list here are very similar. So I'm going to just indent all these things. Yeah. So now you might be we all know what a string is. A string is a bunch of characters. The only different what's the difference between a string and a list? The difference is that a list is a combination of strings, while a string is a combination of characters. So a list is the next step after a string. You get. So we know that, for example, if I want to create a variable called name now, so go back, come here, and name. Say name is equal to let me see, like Richie. Okay, Richie. Yeah, last example. So now we know that Richie is made up of characters. That's what create. That's how we know it's Richie. And then the difference between this name and this list is just, in fact, they are basically almost the same thing. The only thing is that a list contains more, is a bunch of letters. A list is a bunch of strings, while a string is a bunch of characters. So the same way we did for this, we can use it here. So we can say, we can do a for loop that says for letters, in what, in name, right? Oh, not say letters, not say letter. So remember, this variable, this can be anything. It can be I, anything you want it to be. But it's good to make it so that once you look at it, you can read it easily, make it easily readable. So for letter in name, you want to just print out the letter. So let's just print out that letter and see what it tells me. So you see that it's the same thing you can do for a string. And so to print out, you should print out all the letters in this name really cheap. Okay, and yeah, you can even do it an indexing if you want. You can index it, index. Let's say print out letter index 7. Also, what will happen. Does Richie have an, it doesn't have, out of range. So usually indexing start from 0. So this is 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we have up to 5 there. So let me print out index, maybe index 4. And the index 4, whatever is an index 4 should be string out of range. What's happening? 1, 2, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, yeah, it will not print out. The reason it's not going to print out is letter is only storing one variable. So let me show you what I mean. Let me show you what I mean now. It's going to run into all these errors. I'm even learning that I'm doing it. So look at what's happening here. For letter in name, print letter, it means the first time it comes, letter is what? R, right? To print out R. So it's storing R inside this letter variable. So after it has printed out, the next time it's going through the list to go to the next one, which is I, and print out I. So when I was trying to do an indexing here, you cannot index a single, you cannot index letter because letter only contains one object at every particular given time in this code, in this loop. So the first time is R, and it was telling me out of range for any index I could because it only contained one element. So if I wanted to get the index, what I would have used, I would have said for each letter in the name, print out the name, print out, print name, okay, let me see, okay, name index. I don't know if this will work, but I doubt. But let's see, let's try. Again, what we said should be index is not an integer, so okay. So let me say print out name index 0, index, it's not too nice, we don't say index 4. Okay, this should work now. So what is on the fourth index? Okay, so this is 0, 1, 2, 3, 4 is I. So we printed out I. How many times? One, like 5 times or so, because that's how many letters are inside the this Richie list here. So there's another way of actually printing out all the index numbers of the, well, I cannot start doing that one now. So yeah, but that's it for your for loops and your while loops, your continue and your break statements. You can iterate through a lot of things. So anything that is that you can iterate through is called an iterable. For example, this is iteratable because it's a string. Your list is also iteratable. What else can you iterate to? You can have iterators. So there are also iterators like the range. That is for range function that we know, like say for letter in range 10. This is also this is iteratable, like an iterator we are using here. It will happen 10 times. So yeah, that's it for your loops. You can do more research on it if you want to work with it on projects. So I will advise you guys to start actively seeking out projects to do. That's the best way to learn, to start building stuff by yourself. Um, if you want, I can. If you okay, Seth, the book, I'll send the book again on the group so that you guys can look at it. There are examples there that we should look at. We've covered a lot of topics there, but I will not say I went as super in depth, but at least I'm sure I've given you most of all the basic, not even most, all the basic stuff you need to know. If you are going through the book or you are going through any other book and you are confused, you can always reach out to me or Taiwo and we'll put you through. Yeah, I think today's class was just like 30 minutes, and so I think, yeah, I think that was okay for today. We tried. I would probably start making the class to take less time, um, so that we will have, be able to. So since we have a lot of time on our hands, we are not rushing anywhere. So, yeah. So thank you all for showing up. It makes it worth it. Online, because this is hard. So thank you for showing up. I hope we've been able to everything under Python loops. We've handled it and you guys understand, and there's no problem or question, right?
Yeah, yeah, please. I want you to throw more light on this while loop.
Okay.
Like this incrementation of numbers, like to be stored on, let's say for example now n equals 0 now. So if you want to increment it now, like n, is it n equals to plus 1, or I don't know how you did it.
Okay, I understand where you're coming from. I understand. I have reached the limit of my reason. So I did a plot. What I did was plus equals. So let me just do something now. Let me just quickly create two variables. Okay, I'll create a variable called number. Let me just say num, because I think num, and I will create that number to maybe let me create it to 10, and then I'm going to create another one called count, and create that one to 0. Right, and yeah, 0.
Yeah.
So now I'm going to use a while loop, and I'll tell Python that while my counter, okay, because it's the variable I'm using to count, is less than is less than the number I want to count to. You can make that number a user input, but I don't really have the time for this trying to start doing that. So it's less than the number you want to count to. You want to perform something. You want to print the count. You want to print it out. You want to print out your counter so you know where you how much you've counted already. So let me call it counter so it's more intuitive. Counter. Right? So this will help you know. So while counter is less than the number. So this will help you know how much you've counted already. But the problem is if I run this, what will happen? You see what will happen? Counter will remain 0 and print it forever, infinitely. Okay? So what I'll stop this now, and so the incrementation is that every time after printing counter, the variable which initially is 0, I want you to increment it by 1. So look at how the you could have done this counter equals counter, this takes time, plus one. Okay, yeah, it works. This is where we would have done it before. But Python, since we do it a lot in Python, the guys are like, the thing is, the thing about Python is if there's usually always a faster way to do things. Usually always is a faster way to do things. So it's just how advanced. Some ways are fast but very advanced. When you start doing list comprehension, you find out that even the for loops you'll be using itself, you don't necessarily need them. You can use a list comprehension and do a lot of automation. So now the counter, what we need to now do is just say counter plus equals one. This means it's the same thing I just wrote before. So it means take counter, equate it to itself plus one. So counter will be equal to counter plus one. That's what this statement means. So when we run it now, it will print counter only 10 times, 9 times actually, because on the ninth time it becomes, we didn't use an equal to. So if you want this to become to get up to 10, what we just say equal to here. So now if I run it, it should get up to 10, right? So yeah, that's pretty much what we did. We just use a very shorter, we use a shorter statement to perform the same action. That was it. So it's a
All right, thank you.
I think it's a property of loops. So anytime you are iterating through any loop, there must be a variable that stores the iteration as it is being as it's iterating through, because this one's also like an iteration, because I'll not call it an iteration, but it explains, it follows the same law that you are iterating through something. At each point in your code that you are iterating through something, you must be storing your value somewhere. You get? So in fact, in your code, any code you are writing, just know that for anything to work, values are being stored somewhere, and your ability to identify where those values are being stored and manipulate and play with it is what will help you to work with other people's code. Because when you start working with OpenCV, I think someone is trying to join the class. Where's my so it's really late though. Because when we start working with stuff like OpenCV for computer vision, most of the code we're not going to write it from scratch, because those codes are not our meat when the videos code. So yeah, we're not going to write the whole thing from scratch. So we'll be using libraries and we'll be using a lot of other people's code. We'll be editing their code, adding more stuff to it, bending it to our will, that kind of stuff. So your ability to know how a code works and play with it is what, in fact, even when you're working also when you're working with on big projects, that's what even can, because most of the code you need to write have been written before. That's one thing that a lot of people do not know. But your ability to find that code and make it to do what you want is actually how good a programmer you are. It's also good to learn how to write your own code from scratch, but you it will take you time, because if it has been done before, just look for where it is, understand it and use it. Knowledge. So that's another thing we need to learn, that the thing when it comes to knowledge, efficiency is key, result is key. That's just the thing about working or programming. So for example, I give two children a task and one of them has a calculator, and I tell, and me, I don't, in fact, I don't even care who has a calculator or not. My own is perform this mathematical operation and give me an answer. The person with the calculator obviously will be faster than the person without the calculator. But me, I don't really care, because I mean, I want my results. So how good you are with being able to understand other people's code, use it, play with it very well, efficiently, and make it your own, is how good a programmer you will become, and how fast you'll be able to work and bring out results. So in case there's a problem, instead of writing the code from scratch, you'll be like, okay, I've seen this thing somewhere. You go where you saw it before, look at it. This person has solved a similar problem. You take their code, you implement your problem into it, and it solves and it works. And everybody's like, this guy, you can code very well. So that's what that's basically our this thing. That's kind of not like our end goal, but the end goal is for us to be able to start writing our own algorithms and all. But before we get there, we need to be able to use what is already on ground to achieve the results that are required from us later when we start working, maybe for a big programming company as a software backend engineer, all those things. All right. So yeah, with that, I think today's class should end because my head is already giving out. I'm just trying. All right, guys. Thank you very much for showing up. We move again tomorrow. I'll get drugs this night, and by tomorrow I should be fine. All right. So don't worry. We go do things. We'll do things. The time is reaching when we start running AI, Python code, and all those things. So don't worry. Just stay tuned, and we'll keep you posted. All right. Okay. I'll end the class now.